How do all ages venues compare to the other venues that you've played at?
How do they compare? That's tough to say. I mean, in all honesty, there's, you know, I wouldn't want to necessarily compare, but what I would say is that we don't generally play 21 hour venues, so I don't, you know, like it's not like I have this kind of, you know, back and forth way to compare them all. Most of the shows we play, even in places that have bars, we try to make them all ages, or at the very least, like, you know, 16, 18 and up. The only time we ever play 21 and up is if it's literally like some crazy special private event, or like the only way we can play on that day in that town, and we need to, because like we want to have gas money or something like that, you know? I mean, that said, there is a difference between spaces like this that have a more, you know, just like kind of more like community-oriented vibe, and even normal rock clubs that will do all ages or 16 and up shows or whatever. And the difference, I think, is largely in all honesty, like the vibe at times like this, as opposed to when one is actually on stage. You know, because we do try and keep it all ages all the time, like the makeup of the audience is usually pretty similar, but there's a, you know, much more kind of like rigid schedule at a normal rock club. There's a lot of times, you know, they have the added motivation of keeping people drinking at the bar, which of course they have usually higher commercial rent and taxes to pay and all that. So it's not like, you know, it's not a diss at all, but there's definitely just more of like a kind of like, hey, like we put this together, like DIY kind of vibe at places like this that is different.
Do you believe in something beautiful? Science from the smallest self-control. Coming friends, 'cause we've forgotten what you tried doing, what's behind what you've been doing.
The DC punk scene has had a major influence on FAA. How has its politics and punk ethos influenced your music?
I'm trying to figure out how I can boil that down to you know, a cogent short answer. I mean,
well, you've like lived and worked in DC before, right?
Yeah, sure.
So
like. yeah, it's true. But my period of being sort of more strongly influenced by the politics of the DC punk scene really was from an earlier time, from before I lived there. It was probably more, you know, really when I was in high school. I was, you know, I grew up as part of the New York hardcore and punk world, and, you know, loved a lot of what was going on there, but certainly the way that you know, the Discord world specifically in DC approached what they did ethically, and the openness with which they allowed all of their music to grow and not be so stridently conservative in adhering to the like kind of punk and hardcore blueprint. Had a huge influence on me before I even really started seriously playing bands. So like we're talking like mid '80s, early '80s, mid '80s.
touring solo different from touring with the farm assistants?
Well, I do all the driving. Yeah, it's totally different actually. It's you know, when I'm on stage and I'm in the middle of a song, it's not as different as you might think, because when the band is playing and, you know, we're all kind of locked into this thing together, you're in the midst of the kind of ecstatic moment of making, you know, music that is exhilarating to you, you know. So that feeling carries over in both senses, you know, in both contexts for me. But touring solo is, everything is a little bit looser, you know, and I have the freedom to play a song if I want to play it, not play a song if I don't want to play it, talk more if I want to talk, not talk if I don't want to talk, hang out more, you know. I play in smaller places when I'm playing solo. The demand is not as great as for band shows, and I mean, in all honesty, a kind of unfortunate reality of the situation that the band, you know, has found itself in for a good portion of the last decade is that like, it's hard for me sometimes these days to even just go out and like watch another band, because I'll try and do that and people with the best of intentions, you know, will come up and want to talk to you. But when you know, it's not always the best time. You know, it makes it hard for me to be able to engage with the whole night and with the other, you know, bands who maybe I've never seen or heard before, you know, and whose music I want to know about. They're playing this bill with us, and touring solo, I really have the ability to do like much more on my own schedule, and much more able to kind of engage even in moments like this, literally, like, which I would probably not be doing if it was a band show. It's just the logistics of everything that has to happen would like negate the possibility. I'd have to be getting the van, or, you know, like loading up or dealing with something, you know, like there's just all kinds of whole other things. Now, that said, I'm also not drawing a line and saying that this is better than that. I mean, my band are my best friends. There's nothing that replaces being on stage with a loud band, you know, just like kicking it out. So it's a little bit apples and oranges in comparison. You know, like one's not necessarily better than the other, but they do have their differences.
They all believe in something beautiful and good. Self-control. Anybody here just to let you disappear? Me and me, how hard you try not to see in my eyes.
What is your favorite food to eat while on tour?
This is actually a really interesting, like, practical thing. Like, I'm vegan, and
right on.
I went vegetarian in 1988, and I went vegan in 1990. So, like, at this point, it's just who I am. It's not like something that I even struggle with, or, you know, whatever. But as you know, I mean, you know, that is certainly one factor of it. Also, just like as you get older, you know, I mean, there's a real legitimate issue of your body just doesn't bounce back from the abuse that you put it through, like it did when you were a teenager or in your 20s, or, you know, it's just like, that's just the fact of life. That's just the way it goes. So I have to, I mean, I try to be even more conscious about the way that I eat these days, because I need to be like properly fueled, you know, and have the proper, like, you know, recovery kind of food, like, ready for me. You know, I eat simply. I eat far down the food chain. Like, I mean, you can't, for tour fuel, for me, like, you can't beat, like, the simplest, like, rice and beans, and some greens. You know, that is, like, seriously, that is what's going to get you through your day with the energy that you need to perform the way that you want to perform, and to be able to do it the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. You know, like stuff like that. So I like, you know, when I'm home, you know, all bets are off, and I certainly go, you know, the junk food or the, like, you know, pasta around. But like when I'm on tour, like, we have this joke about like day off spaghetti. You know, like I don't really like, my treat for myself on my days off is like big Italian meal. You know, that's my big decadent. You know?